Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Sumadre production.
So Kevin, the music maker for this podcast, actually said that the Glide Path episode was good because we liked the movie, but we didn't think it was perfect. And we were both, he and I were texting about how it was, it's so much more interesting to hear people talk about something that they have, like, that opinion on, rather than, like, when not listening to someone who hates something is not interesting. Listening to someone who loves something without any consideration for its flaws is also not particularly interesting.
Yes.
So if you're, like, jazzed about something, but you also think that it isn't perfect, that's why I feel like I've said this before. That's why I loved when I recently watched War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. That movie is nowhere near perfect, but it's a big budget, beautiful special effects, alien invasion movie. So I love it. Yeah. But it's so fun to discuss, like, what it could have been.
Totally.
While also realizing that it's awesome for kind of what it is.
Right.
So we're here today to discuss, this is a bonus episode. That was a kind of a weird intro. I've been recording. But anyway, welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast. This is a bonus episode. We are discussing a book that is not by Arthur C. Clarke. We probably won't bring him up at all after this moment. Maybe we will. I don't know. But one of my favorite, probably my favorite person involved in comic books is a man by the name of Rick Veitch. And he does write some sci-fi. He's like he writes weird stuff. It's not your standard stuff. The one time he got into standard comics, I'll tell this story later. It ended not ideally for. Well, he kind of made a stand and left mainstream comics. But it's cool because he left that situation when it was at its peak. So there was never a downturn in the quality of what he was doing, you know?
Interesting, yeah.
I could know more things about Rick Veitch. I've read everything pretty much everything that he's done. Definitely everything that has been collected into a graphic novel I've read. And then now he's basically independent. He draws and writes and all that stuff on his own through print on demand in Amazon. So, like, we're going to talk mostly about one book that came out recently. That's the reason we're doing this episode, because this book, Tombstone Hand, came out, I think, in April of this year. So that is the reason we are doing this episode, because it's a brand new book. Do you have the copyright over there?
Yeah, first edition, February 2021.
Okay, yeah. So he went independent, and now he can make what you read, which is just totally weird stuff that isn't necessarily going to sell well. Although, I mean, I don't know. I really don't even know what I'm talking about. But I just want to talk about him as an artist in these books.
Yeah, no, I could tell these are different. I mean, I haven't read a lot of graphic novels, or comics in general. And what I have read has been in graphic novel form. But I feel like there's a similarity in all of them that was very different from most of what you gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you could just tell that these were, that they're just different. It's like almost like experimental in a sense, just like, like a little edgier.
Yeah. And the thing about Rick Veitch is, even when he was mainstream, what he was doing in the mainstream for DC and Marvel was not the normal thing.
I gotcha.
But he's just so good that even when he's doing these weird experimental things, DC and Marvel see that it's good and they publish his stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I could tell you, I consider Rick Veitch to be like my 9 Inch Nails of comic books. No one, in my opinion, comes close in terms of, like, talent and just what he does is just completely and totally to my taste. But I remember, like, everything about when I first discovered 9 Inch Nails, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Rick Veitch is a little different. Like, I remember when I first got into actually, you're the reason I first got into comic books, or maybe. Well, no, you're the reason I got into the Dream. What's that called? The Sandman.
Yes.
But I got into comics because of that movie, The Punisher, that came out in 2004 with Tom Jane. Mm-hmm. Tom Jane's like my Nine Inch Nails and Rick Veitch of acting. So anyway, so I got into comic books then when I was in high school, and then I'm 99% sure the first Rick Veitch thing that I got and made me realize I love him is this. It's a collection. Actually, yeah, it's a collection of short stories in comic book form. So it's a graphic novel that doesn't tell a whole story. It's just these little short stories.
Oh,
and
interesting.
they're all vastly different from each other.
Yeah.
Like there's one that's like black and white with no words, like blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's called Shiny Beasts. And actually the back cover is my Instagram photo, like my personal Instagram. It has been forever. So I think that's what got me into him.
Yeah.
And from there, I don't really know. So I guess I probably did research. And so the point I'm getting to is that the most famous thing that he did was Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay.
Swamp Thing is DC. And Swamp Thing, this run that Alan Moore did. You're familiar with Alan Moore? V for Vendetta.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Okay. So Alan Moore wrote Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
For, I don't know the details. What I know is what I have. What I have is, I think it's 6 to 8 graphic novels. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot. He wrote for years.
Yeah.
This amazing, amazing Swamp Thing story.
Yeah.
Some of the best writing I've ever encountered in comic books.
Yeah.
Probably second only to The Sandman.
Yeah.
Rick Veitch at one point became the artist for that run. Alan Moore stopped, and Rick Veitch took over as also writer.
Oh.
And so I have 3 that continue that story from when Alan Moore stopped of Rick Veitch. And then Rick Veitch stopped doing that. So that's where my comic books end with Swamp Thing. But the reason he stopped is because he wanted Swamp Thing to meet Jesus.
Okay.
And DC said no.
We're not going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rick Veitch left. Rick Veitch quit. So then, I mean, he's done other things. He did a run on Aquaman, which is okay.
Yeah.
But what's so amazing, his best things are his edgy stuff that is graphic novels. So he has one called The One, which is an alternative version of what happens when an alien Superman shows up on Earth. Basically that it's not going to be a good thing. His most famous one is called Brat Pack.
Okay.
And this is what it would really be like if superheroes had teenage sidekicks.
Okay.
Like really what that would be like.
Yeah.
And the cover is in a bathroom, and the where the frame ends at the top, you see a mouth holding a mask in his mouth.
Yeah.
Like the ones that just go over your eyes.
Right.
And he's shaving his legs to probably have his spandex suit fit better. Right. So it's like a funny, like semi-realistic approach to like this bullshit would not actually work out and it would be fucked up.
I gotcha.
It's awesome.
All right.
He also has, Abraxas and the Earthman, which is a sci-fi version of Moby Dick. So Moby Dick, the whale, is this massive alien thing that, like, just a big-ass alien, like, as big as a planet.
Yeah.
He has so many that are so amazing. Oh, dude, he did one called Army at Love, which is so weird. But it's like about the Iraq War.
Yeah.
But all these soldiers get off on, like, having sex in the middle of combat.
Oh.
It is so weird. But it's, like, funny.
Yeah.
I've never encountered a single thing Rick Veitch has ever done that I have ever thought was not cool.
Yeah.
Also, this is always stuck in my head as probably the greatest single, like, standalone graphic novel is called Gray Shirt, Indigo Sunset. And it's got this noir cover. And so every time I looked at it, I was like, I have no interest in that. Like, I'm not into noir shit. I'm not into dudes with, like, the like bowler hat and, like, the trench coat. That aesthetic does not interest me at all.
Yeah.
But I eventually read it, and it is amazing, dude. Amazing.
Yeah.
There are several moments in that graphic novel that I like 100%. I was like on the verge of going to my tattoo artist and being like, dude, please put this on my body.
Oh, wow.
So many times. And it's sci-fi, but it's one of those things that like you don't know it's sci-fi kind of until you really get in. You have to get far to realize like there's some weird shit happening behind the scenes.
Right.
It's amazing. But anyway. And then, dude. Oh, and then, so I listened to this other podcast. I'll try to put this in the intro and the outro of where you could find this stuff. I listened recently to a podcast with Rick Veitch. He was the guest. And he explained that when he left the DC and the Marvel, I think they came to him asking him to come back or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, only if you let me do whatever I want. And they were like, okay. So he made this graphic novel. It's called Can't Get No.
Yeah.
And it is this astounding, it's black and white, and it's about like the aftermath of 9/11. Kind of. And there's a main character, and I don't even really remember why. I need to reread it. But he's covered in all these like markings and like tattoos. So every time you look at all the pages, it's like so clear who is the main character. And it tells a visual story, but it also is a poem. Like there are no words, but every single page is kind of one part of the story, and under it is like this poem. It's like a poem. It's like maybe like a stream of consciousness type thing. Okay. And so you might have noticed if you read the ones that don't have any words, you can kind of flip kind of quick, and it kind of makes sense. But in this one, what I loved is that it forces you to pace yourself. It forces you to actually read something, even though it's not directly related to the image. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It forces you to slow down and be like...
Be on that page.
Yeah, you're kind of like, what do these have to do with each other? And you're kind of following two storylines. Can't Get No is really cool. So anyway, but today, like I said, we're here to talk about Tombstone Hand. And Amy is my guest. I haven't said that yet.
Yeah, hello. I hope we get to talk about the other ones too, because
of course.
I loved, I'm not going to say all of these. There's one I didn't really care for, but that's just me.
Okay.
But very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like just really.
Ooh, one other thing I have to mention that he did in the past.
What?
Okay, so he started his own comic line at one point, and he did these things called dream comics.
Okay.
They don't make any sense. They're his dreams.
Oh.
And and the other thing I have to say about Rick Veitch is that he's the writer, the artist, like he does everything.
Everything.
And that's not particularly common in comic books. It's not.
Yeah.
And I think I'd mentioned this to you also. He said in this interview that I mentioned in this podcast that the reason he did that is because he's from Vermont. Mm-hmm. And it came up in the early 80s when you had to go to school to learn how to do this stuff.
Right.
You had to physically go to school.
Right.
Which I can't believe I even have to say that because that's been it, forever. But so he had to go to school in New York City. He's from Vermont. He knew from a very early age that he did not want to live in a city.
Yeah.
So he knew that he had to go to this school and he had to learn how to do everything so that he could work from Vermont, from the middle of nowhere.
Without anyone around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's an isolationist, but the idea, it's just the idea that what he said is that he just didn't want to live in a city.
Yeah.
So some advice for you, whoever you are, if you're listening to this, if you're trying to do something in life, like you need to know where you want to be and you need to prepare for that. You need to make yourself into something that will survive and thrive in where you want to see yourself. So it's just a really good lesson.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Like he could have just been an amazing artist and forced to live in New York City and just bitch and moan his whole life that he wished he was in the country.
Right.
But no, he said, I'm going to do what I want to do, and in order to do that, I have to do A, B, C, D. So I'm going to learn how to do that, and then I'm going to hit the highway and go to Vermont.
Yeah.
And so the dream comics are awesome because they are so they have no consideration for logic. Like they're just so weird. And it's funny too because they often take place in Vermont. And it's often like of the time, like there will be celebrities show up in his dreams, and they're always like people from like the 80s.
That's great.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So those are awesome. That's like 3 whole graphic novels of those collected.
Yeah.
And I have them all, and they're really cool.
Yeah.
But Anyway, so let's get into the books, though. Why don't you start us off? Why don't you just pick one? So basically, I Tombstone Hand's the new one, and then I had 4 of them that are all part of this Sun Comics that he does, which is print on demand. So I gave them all to... And
this is all, like, he does everything with this, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, everything, including, like...
Well, if you look at
publishing?
the credits, print on demand, yeah, it's basically self-publishing.
Yeah, published by Sun Comics, and it's... Yeah, like...
Does it say lettering
like
or anything? Like, might be lettering or inking by someone else?
No, I'm pretty sure I looked at all of these, and this is the only one... So I've got Tombstone Hand, I've got The Spotted Stone... I've got, what is this, Otzi?
I say Otzi, but I'm not really sure.
Super Catchy and Redemption. Yeah. And Super Catchy is the one that says the color is by Kirby Veitch.
Oh, yeah.
And lettering is by Ezra.
Okay.
It's Veitch, right?
Veitch,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those must be... kids, relatives?
Kirby might be a brother. No, I think Kirby's his son. I really don't know. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you do know, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, because well,
the important distinction is that Super Catchy is the only one that's in color of these that we have.
Yes, exactly. Super Catchy was the one I didn't really care for, but I think it's only because maybe I'm not like a big superhero comic person. The other ones like really like resonated, with me, being creative and, like introspective and, artistic, but Super Catchy, I just didn't, it's like I didn't get it is the easiest way for me to explain it. It's beautiful.
Right.
Because it's in color and the illustrations are incredible, but like I just didn't really get it.
So, yeah, my opinion on Super Catchy is that basically Super Catchy is the most not a story of all of them.
Yeah.
It's literally just each page.
Panel, yeah.
Each page is a illustration with basically, just give me one example. What does it say? Super Catchy something?
Super Catchy doesn't need X-ray specs to see into every nook and cranny of your soul.
Right. So each gorgeous drawing of some kind of weird superhero thing has a little saying that says something about whatever Super Catchy is. I don't know even what it is.
Yeah.
But what I want to say about it is that because each one is its own individual thing, there are pages that I love, and then there are pages that I don't love.
Right.
But I don't think that really any of that combines to say that the book is either good or bad, Like some of them I think are hilarious. Some of them I think I don't think anything about.
And
them.
are some of these characters in here seemed familiar? Are they are they actual comic book characters, or
I don't believe so. I could be wrong.
One of them, the one I kind of had a suspicion like throughout it, and then the one, where's the one that I was like, oh, isn't this Black Panther?
I think it's supposed to look like him, I think that is what Black Panther's modeled after. I think that's just supposed to be an African tribes person.
Oh, okay, yeah. So and like some of them just seemed like they might be other comic book characters, but I don't know. It was. I don't think. And so that's what I mean. Like it was. The whole thing was just like kind of strange for me. It was beautiful to look at,
right?
But I didn't really. I was kind of. Odd.
I think Super Catchy is certainly just like a little funny thing, and like But then there's like weird, like this kind of like that's awesome.
Right. Oh yeah. The illustrations are like.
But one thing I will say about all these comic books that we have here, these self-published ones, is they're all really cheap.
Yeah.
They're like $8 or less.
Yeah.
So that is, if I spent $20 on this,
right,
I'd be like, that's not necessarily worth it.
Yeah, but no, it's just like fun to like grab and have and look.
And at this point in Rick Veitch's career, I mean, if you're going to buy a Rick Veitch book, you're probably already a Rick Veitch fan.
Right.
Like these are made for me.
Yes. And that's the thing is like that book I felt like is definitely made for like a comic book fan, maybe a superhero fan, a Rick Veitch fan, definitely not me outside of just appreciating
The art,
exactly. Whereas like the spotted stone,
dude,
I mean, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was awesome. It has no words.
Yep.
But yet I knew exactly what was going on in each and every one of these frames.
Yep.
Like, it was
the spotted stone.
wild.
Like, I feel like hits you pretty hard.
Yeah.
And certainly, like, I mean, at this point, saying cell phones are bad is
right.
overplayed. We get it.
Right.
But there's something about that and the way it hits you because it brings you on this journey that is so far removed from cell phones, and then it circles back at the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
and then this panel right here where she's holding the stone and the cell phone, one in each hand.
Yeah, and we always talk about punchline endings for short stories. The punchline ending is how the whole thing is just a circle.
It's a circle.
And
it's awesome.
you realize that what she does with the stone at the end is what someone did before to end up having it happen to her.
Yeah, this was cool.
Maybe give like an explanation or something, because we're talking about graphic novels, so I apologize if you're listening. You probably don't know what we're talking about.
Right. So it basically it starts with this woman, and she's just a regular woman, and she's just going about her regular daily life, but she's in front of screens all the time. Starts her day with a screen, proceeds through her day at work with a screen. On her way home, she is staring at her cell phone screen again and gets hit in the head by a spotted stone. And when she picks it up, it sort of lifts her.
But what is it? Does it show what it does to what she's holding? Right? Does it show that? Oh yeah,
sorry. When it hits her in the head, when the stone hits her in the head, she drops the phone and the phone is cracked.
Right.
Yeah. So she holds the stone and she's like, what is this? And all of a sudden it starts taking off. Like, it's lifting her up into the sky. And then it like takes her to an even bigger stone, and she gets like sucked into like one of the spots on the stone. And the next thing she knows, she's being pulled out of the stone by some strange guy. He's kind of reminds me of like a shaman or something.
Yeah. Once she enters the stone, if you will, everything reverts to like old-timey stuff, like a more natural world.
Yeah, that he grabs her. Yeah, like the shaman guy like grabs her out of a spot in the stone. And yeah, everything is there are little spotted stones everywhere, and it's like old-timey, like it's just like, we're back to our basics, working the land.
When she enters this world, I forget, is she a baby or is she an adult?
She's an adult.
Okay. But then she grows old, right?
Yeah, so she basically lives an entire life there.
Right.
She lives an entire life. She gets like accustomed. They take her in. The people in this new world like take her in, and she gets accustomed to everything. And she, finds a love interest, and they end up together, and they build a home, and they have children. And then she goes through this her entire life cycle basically until she's an old woman. And when as she's on her deathbed, the shaman returns with the stone, and she stares at it, and basically like my interpretation is she falls back into it and then comes to, and it's like she never left.
She's still holding the cracked phone.
She's still
and
standing there. Yeah, she's still sitting there holding the stone. So it's almost like the stone put her like in a trance,
right,
where she was transported, and she saw maybe what her life could be and how fulfilled she could be, and then, unfortunately though, I don't know. I can't, I don't know. Like, does she, no. There is no unfortunately. She tosses her phone, and it's just like, this is crazy. Like I don't need this.
Yeah.
And then also throws a stone.
Right.
Like, that was like this crazy experience. Like,
and I love at the end when she comes out of the stone, doesn't she laugh in isn't she laughing kind of like in a hysterical, almost crazy looking way?
Yeah, like she's just like what was that? Like,
I feel like she's basically realizing what we all kind of like what's kind of like a message these days is that it's all ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to be addicted to the screens.
Right.
So she just laughs like almost maniacally. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that's there's definitely, yeah.
And then she throws the stone and
yeah.
And it hits another guy. He drops his phone.
Yep.
His phone cracks.
And then the last page is the black spot getting bigger.
Right.
So it's like it's going to happen to him too.
Yeah. And so again, I said it before, but what I love about it is the time you realize it's a circle.
Right.
It's you're back to the beginning.
Right.
Because in the beginning, you don't know where why would a stone come out of nowhere?
From, yeah.
So once you hit the ending, you go, oh,
right.
It came from someone who just went through what she went through.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm in my mind making connections to 2001, man, because she goes in and she comes out like reborn.
Yeah.
And with he would think of something, it's a circle. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. This was really cool. And like I said, I've never experienced like a graphic novel with no words.
Right. And I feel like this is like, we won't get too much into it, but this is like when I talk about the video game The Witness and how there are no words. There are no words in English. You just experience this game and you learn how to play it.
Yeah.
But then when you meet up with someone else who's played it, you don't know what language to use, even though you've both maybe completed the game. It's like you don't know how to explain how you did it. Because
it's an experience.
Exactly.
It's not...
And so the connection with this book is that everything that you and I just said, we took from a story that is told with 0 words.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And yet,
and it's so funny because that isn't strange. It's like how think about cave paintings, right? It's like how we did things, and think about little kids before they learn how to write, they draw pictures. Like it's how we learn. Like, but when we and start out, but then like it becomes weird to us because we're so used to words and language, and it's really
back to like
interesting.
the telepathy thing.
Yeah,
remember that we talked about with like the Richard Matheson story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like how words just take everything and make them so pointed,
exactly,
like so specific.
Yeah. Whereas just looking at one of these tiles in this book and like putting them all together, it's so rich without having a single word. And so
that's
anywhere.
That's what like the experience is so amazing and vivid in your head, and then when you go to talk about it, even though it's hard to talk about it, the point I'm trying to make is that like I don't know how to describe the way she laughs at the end,
right?
Because it's just the way you take it in. So I go, I don't know, hysterical, maniacal, I don't know.
But it's great that we get to make that personal decision instead of having somebody tell us, because that's what everything is. That's what like traditional learning is. That's like how the world is. Mm-hmm. And so it's really fun to. And this is
okay. Especially, I know you already want to watch Indie Game the movie, but there is a part in Indie Game the movie where one of the developers, and he's the designer, not the coder, not the guy who writes the code, the guy who designs the game.
Yeah,
he explains how you teach a player without words how to play your game, and it's so interesting.
Yeah,
it's so fascinating because it's just a whole other like. It's something we experience, but again, you don't have words for it.
Right.
So that whole thing is really amazing. But anyway.
Yeah. So Spotted Stone.
Yeah. Amazing.
Totally awesome. Redemption.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question for you is, when you read this at the very end, what did you do at the very end of this book?
What did I do?
Yeah. What did you do?
Maybe wondered if it's an homage to Bob Marley. I don't know. Why?
Well, the very last thing I did was look up Bob Marley Redemption.
Oh.
Redemption song. Did you read the lyrics?
No.
Dude.
My bad.
You totally, like, I was just like.
Is it like that?
No, but it's like the lyrics make the book like. So, like, it just completes it.
Really?
Yes.
Damn.
Because, seriously, like, the way, like, it doesn't, like, I knew there had to be something. I mean, the name of the book is Redemption. You go through this entire book. It's a story, a very strange story. It's a very loopy, weird, evolving story. Every single page is an image with one word.
With TION at the end.
Yes. shun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the very last page is Bob Marley
Right.
with the word redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I clearly should have.
So that was like the first thing that I did. And I am very familiar with a lot of, Bob Marley music, and I love it and I enjoy it. But I don't like know, hold on. I didn't like immediately know like what it was, but like this, for example, like one of the, like I could read the whole thing, but one of the, what are they called in the choruses or one of the parts of the
Verse.
song? Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy because none of them can stop the time. Like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And so this is the thing, man. Like the best, we talk about this in like video games too, that the best experiences are not ones where someone's holding your hand, walking you through it.
Right.
It doesn't say, listen to these lyrics to have a companion piece to this.
Right.
You have to experience it.
Yeah.
And now this is exciting. So now I get to go and listen to this song.
Yeah. So like, it's just crazy because basically it's like, by the time you get to the end of this, you realize that it's like, it's like dreams, right?
Yeah.
So the main character in the story is having these crazy dreams, and the dreams are awesome. Like I loved each and every one of these panels. It was so cool. And but then the dreams are like almost like disturbing him because he's just like, why am I having these dreams? So he goes to and this is not in this, I mean, this is not written in this book, this is my interpretation of it. And he goes to like a therapist, and the therapist is like, oh yeah, like this has been coming up more and more often. People are having these crazy dreams. And, the guy's like, I'm feeling like I'm resonating with something, like, it reminded me of THX 1138, right? Yeah. And, the guy's like, well, the only thing that you can do about these dreams, they're not good because they make you less productive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, you got to take these pills, you got to take this medication, right? And then, of course, at the end, he decides,
throws them away, right?
Yeah, he decides they're not for me. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you get to the end and then you read these lyrics, it's like, like, won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? Like, it just totally makes sense. It's like you're being. This book is about, like societal oppression. I mean, not to say that's what the lyrics, but to the song are about, but it's just like really interesting because they just like totally correlate.
That's awesome. I'm excited that you made that connection.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I think it also speaks to Rick Veitch's generation.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because he's, I mean, again, it's not that it really mattered, but he kind of strikes you as a hippie.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, yeah.
Especially and I'm drawing that from like the Dream comics, because your dreams are all about, I guess, like your subconscious. So what he dreams about and then puts on the page should say something about what he thinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how he thinks.
Yeah.
And you get that vibe.
Because this Redemption's about dreams.
Right.
Yeah.
So Redemption, it's awesome. I think you took more from it than I did, but
that was very cool.
Yeah, I dig it.
Very cool.
Want to do Otzi now?
Yeah.
So Otzi is certainly the most appropriate for this podcast because it's very much like sci-fi.
Oh, totally.
Like parallel universes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
super cool story.
And the one distinction to make is that although I didn't understand the whole Bob Marley thing in Redemption, I enjoyed Redemption. But Otzi is a story.
Yeah.
Like with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Again, with, no words. There are words within the panels. But
it's not narrated. Like, it's not, you're not told. I think that's what I love about all this, is you're not told what to think.
Yeah. You should check out Can't Get No. And the thing about Can't Get No, dude, is it's like over 300 pages.
Wow.
It's intense.
Yeah.
But, so I'm curious to hear what you think about Otzi, because honestly, I don't fully understand the ending. I get everything and I'm on board. The very ending is a little like I'm not really sure who is who at the end.
Well, it's like a little. I mean, it's difficult. It's a little time loop, parallel universes.
Because I like in the beginning how they say this. We have this in our timeline. This person was shot with an arrow,
right?
And then at the end, he gets shot with an arrow,
right?
But then I don't understand the guy who shoots him. Why? Like, so he went back to shoot him, but why? Because then he goes back and you know it's present day because he's in a car.
Right. And it was like that's what he needed to do. I don't know. This one you're right. The ending was very crazy, but I got through the beginning of this was so awesome. Like I was just like, what in the heck is going on? Like what? Like I just was like wide-eyed at every panel. I couldn't believe it. And when they showed in the very beginning, when he's like imagining something, like he's like has these thought bubbles. He's like imagining something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it kind of looked familiar, but it wasn't until I got to the museum part when they're in the museum that I was like, is this real? And then I looked it up, and it's this character is real.
The
Otzi.
Oh, okay.
He's real.
Like he's like a mummified.
Yes, they've really found him.
Right.
He's like, and he's called Otzi the Iceman, and like it's true. Like everything about this is true, down to the tattoos.
Really?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. I
got to do my research.
Well, like I said, the positioning of the mummified body, I was like, that looks familiar. Like I've seen it.
Yeah.
And so that's what made me look it up. I was like, is this a real thing?
Right.
And so yeah, sure enough, it is, which is really cool because it's like, it's so neat to like imagine like it's somebody. I think it's like 5,000 years ago or something. It's like really like they found him like a long, long time ago, and 5,000 can't be right, but whatever. So he's like a real mummified person, and it's like we know so much about who he was, but we obviously don't know his story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like so cool to like put a story behind that, and then even to like imagine that it had something to do with time travel or parallel universes. I just love it. I just love that concept.
Yeah. And again, dude, that is like 2001, because one of the things in 2001 is that this could very well happen.
Right.
This could very well have happened.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't have any proof that it is or is not real.
Totally. And
so
actually they have like an entire, I mean, basically there's an entire, what is it, a History Channel, the Ancient Aliens?
Yeah.
Like it's just like tons of people putting backstories to all these like crazy things that have happened, whether they're, explainable or unexplainable. But there are just so many like awesome and this panel right here, I totally thought of the Overmind from Childhood's End. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. So it's just like,
I want to give just a brief description of kind of like what happens and what makes it sci-fi. What's cool about it is that like he's like a lone hunter in like caveman, well, not caveman, like 5,000 thousands years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Advanced enough to be wearing furs and have like a bow and arrow.
Yes.
And he goes up in the mountains and he's hunting birds or something.
Yep.
And then he finds these floating rocks,
mm-hmm.
and he jumps on them, and he's jumping mm-hmm. higher and higher, blah, blah, blah. Things get mm-hmm. weird and trippy. And then he ends up being born as a baby, right?
Yes, because everything... Yeah, he meets, like, this, like... Well,
oh, yeah, there's, like, that... Oh, yeah, that...
Yeah,
that
there's, like, this
outline.
woman. Yeah, you can tell it's feminine, this woman. And then... all this like crazy stuff happens, and the woman ends up pregnant.
Oh yes,
because that's like what it is. So it's like, so what they say is she ends up. So it says DNA harvested from 5,000-year-old mummy used to create host embryo for alternate Otzi.
Yeah.
So she. I don't know, that part. The part's like kind of crazy. Like, is this? It like gives some implication that it's like, is this like?
The idea is that they extracted the DNA from the mummified person and
Yeah.
cloned him, and now
Right.
he's born into the world
Yes.
as a baby. But then as the
Yes.
story goes on, they like patent the technology, and then the world is populated with like famous clones.
Yes.
Like there's the David Bowie bartender, and
Yeah.
even Rod Stewart at the end.
I was trying to figure out
That's
all the
definitely
different.
Rod
Yeah, I was
Stewart,
trying
dude.
to figure out all of this. Like, who's
Yeah.
that? Like, I couldn't.
That's Philip K. Dick.
Yeah. Okay.
99% sure. Yeah.
There were like so many of them. Like, it was a riot. I was trying to like pick them all out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. And that's Einstein in the middle.
Yeah. Stephen Hawking. Oh, that's David Lynch.
Oh, nice.
So like, it was really fun.
And then the end just gets weird. And it gets weird, and more sci-fi stuff happens. And like,
Yeah. It's like,
this is one that you should. We're not giving too much away, so
Well,
you should definitely read this one.
right. And because this one is definitely, it's like, it's hard to explain
Mm-hmm.
because it's like while you're reading it, or not reading it, you don't read anything. While you're experiencing it, you're like following this journey, and like now thinking back, I'm like, I don't even really know what was going on, but like it made sense when I was experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I wish I was better at articulating.
Well, I think that's
things.
the point, is that you
Right.
shouldn't really be able to articulate it. You know, like if you're told a
Yeah.
story in words, then it's easy to retell the story in words. If you're told a story in
Right.
pictures, it's nearly impossible to retell the story in words.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Because it's just not.
So I guess this
meant-
podcast is totally pointless.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't care, though.
But yeah, so then
the reason we're here is a normal comic book with words.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when we get to that,
Yeah. So, I mean, basically the end just becomes, I feel like it's like about identity, you know, like I think the
Yeah.
ending is probably about identity. It's like, because, you know, you're working with a, you know, like this person is a clone, but even though they're a clone, they're still a person,
yeah,
you know, experiencing their own experiences. And so maybe it's just like, you know, like, and then there's the idea of the parallel universe, which obviously he crosses that somehow. And it's like, you know, maybe I can't tell if it was like the plan all along, or if it was just, or if it was even really happening. Maybe it was just in his mind.
yeah. See, I see it as it's just a visual representation for, I mean, cloning or
Yeah.
taking someone. And there's the idea that we have, like, you know, embedded memories in our
Right,
genes.
right,
So I
yeah.
think that's why it's kind of shown as he experiences it when he's alive.
Yeah.
And then I feel it's just like a visual representation. It's, again, like 2001.
Yeah.
At the end, it's just,
Yeah.
you're just looking at colors.
Right.
And then he's an old man, and then he's a baby.
Right.
Like, how do
Yeah.
you explain that?
Yeah.
Unless you read the book.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
But you get it while you watch it.
yeah, this is a very cool.
And again,
I really liked it.
and it says right on the back, 142 pages, $9. You know what I mean? It's,
Oh, yeah.
It's so dope.
Oh, this is, and that's, that's, yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's totally perfect. It's totally accessible and interesting, and the art is really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's do Tombstone Hand, and then
Tombstone Hand.
we can wrap it up. So this is the reason that we're doing this. Like we said, came out February 2021, and it tells a much more normal story.
Yeah.
There's not that much dialogue. You know, some comic books are
Yeah, have a lot.
filled to the brim
Yeah.
with dialogue and narration.
Yeah.
This one's like pretty spare.
Yeah, I think actually I liked it. Was like there's a balance. There's a lot,
Yeah.
like a lot without and a lot.
Yeah, I think once you kind of get to a
yeah.
point where you're like, why am I watching a dude dig a grave? And then someone
Yeah.
will show up and explain everything,
Yes,
and you're like,
yeah.
oh, okay, I'm back into it. And I think the funniest thing about this is that when I sent you a picture of the cover, and I was like,
Yeah.
we're going to do an episode about this, and you
Yep.
go, what's up with those fingernails?
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even notice the fingernails.
Yeah.
And then it's like the main thing in the book.
Yeah,
And it's called Tombstone Hand.
yeah.
I
It
never
was
made
funny.
that connection
When I-
until he used his hand.
Yeah,
the
when
way
I
he
got
did.
when I got to the end, I was just like you know, like I had noticed it, and like I figured something had to be up with that, and then they kept mentioning it in it, and then of
Yeah.
course, like, you know, the climax,
Right.
and you're just like, oh, that explains it.
Yeah. And I would, in terms of plot, it's weird. I don't think I've ever read a Rick Veitch that's like a Western. I don't think. This is very much a Western. It's
Yeah.
like 1800s maybe.
Oh,
does it say?
1926.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's the first, the very first page is Gila Bend, Arizona,
yeah. Okay.
1926.
Yeah, so it's basically like a guy shows up to like dig a grave and get a bounty from it, and these two
Yeah,
other
it's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
these two other guys show up and they have like a interesting dialogue back
Yeah.
and forth
Yeah.
of like who's going to take the money, but it's like your standard. It's clever, but it's your standard like
Yeah, it's like we thought we were partners,
Yeah.
but then like he, you know, oh, no wonder you're called Sliver, and yeah,
and there's like no
double
no
crossing.
sci-fi.
That's what the word. Yeah,
But it's cool because like all different kinds of people show up.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a more refined gentleman shows
yeah,
up
he's
at
like
the
a
end?
count or something. Like he,
And they're all looking for the same treasure.
yeah, like everyone's looking for it,
Yeah.
and like everyone's like throwing them off their game, and
What's so cool is that the one with the most straightforward story and the dialogue is the one that I have the least to say about. You know?
yeah, I mean, I really when I first started in on it, I was just like, and
Yeah.
then like as it kept going, I was like, where is this going? But like I think this is a great, you know, because like the other ones didn't really have words, but like this one had words, and like I think it speaks to like the storytelling that Rick Veitch is also capable of, you know, verbally or, you know, written. Like the dialogue was great. Like it really like
Yeah.
it was like pointed. Like it really like it gave you the information. It like set the scene. Like I felt like I knew exactly how these people were speaking and acting. Like
Right.
it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like how that all worked.
And I think it's pretty simple, the dialogue, and like a
Yeah.
lot of what they say to each other, but
Yeah.
there are moments of cleverness even within the simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does the thing that I think I can't remember when we talked about, I think in the Richard Matheson episode about subtle science fiction,
Yes.
and that there is the moment where you kind of think that maybe it might be going to sci-fi, but
Right.
then you realize that it's
Yeah.
someone was lying about what they were seeing.
Yeah, like it's
In order to get the
storytelling
upper hand.
and and trickery, and you know, and then like the guy who won't die.
Oh yeah,
How he comes back.
right.
It's just so funny. And then like it's all for like, what is it all for? Just like $40,000 or something like that, which I suppose would have been like a lot of money.
A lot of dough.
Yeah. But it's just like, it's just great. Like I think also what's interesting is that this story is so dependent like on the words, because it's all about the words and the lies that are coming out of everyone's mouth.
Right.
You know, it's just interesting. And I'd have to say that my absolute favorite part about this is how it starts and how it ends.
Oh yeah, I forgot how good the beginning is with the because you don't. Yeah. Oh, I forgot with the noose.
Well, not even before you get there.
Okay.
It just starts with a shadow
creeping
across the landscape.
And like how cinematic is that?
Yes.
Like that is a movie scene. That is not usually done in comic books.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it ends. It's a shadow receding.
Right.
And so what's so much fun is that about this is, I mean, it probably takes place in like maybe a 12-hour period or something. It's just like this perfect like snippet of like just this, you know, like there's no beginning, there's no end really. It's like, you know, like you don't know how this started. You don't even really know what the hell is in the box.
Yeah,
because,
and there's certainly
like,
no one to root for.
Yeah.
No one's good or anything.
Yeah, and so it's just like you come in and then you come out.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was very cool. It was really very cool.
And we won't spoil much or any more about this one because it's brand new.
Yeah, it's brand new, so definitely.
If you're listening,
Yeah.
it's like $10.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's $9.95, 130 pages. It's beautiful. It's well written.
Yeah.
It's a very cool experience. Like, get that.
Yeah, and so to end this, as an artist, like, what do you think about his art, his drawing abilities? And what's interesting is, again, it's in this interview that I listened to that's very recent.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about, they're like, how do you draw these days? He's like, with a computer.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, like they're like these young guys who are hungry in the comics industry. They're like, I just need that sound of graphite on paper or something like that.
My
and Rick
Lord.
Veitch, he's just like, yeah, no.
Right.
He's like, this is just the most efficient way for me to do it now.
Exactly. I think that's what's kind of cool. Like I understand that there's like a, people are like obsessed with old technologies and like the old ways of doing things, but it's always so cool when like someone who went through all of that stops and says, yeah, but this is awesome. Like, like there's a reason like why we got here and why it's so valuable.
He's like, listen, I didn't have a choice back then.
Exactly.
So I put in my time.
Yes.
Drawing things longhand.
Yes. And it's funny because I came like the art school that I went to was very, very focused on not the upcoming technology, but on like having that like foundation, making sure that you understood all the principles behind the things that you were then going to easily do on the computer. And I really appreciate that. I really, really do, because technology is something that you can learn, like you just grab a book, you get someone else who knows how to, you sit there in front of it, you figure it out. Like it's, like you can just learn it, but like knowing why those tools were created, because that's the thing is like someone didn't just like reinvent art and create Adobe Illustrator. Like all the tools that you use on there, they're there. Someone who didn't do it on a computer had to make those tools.
Yes.
So it's like
by reverting, it's almost like saying, yeah, I'm not interested in the advances that you made.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think I am the most, I don't know how to put this because I'm not, I don't know. Like what I want to say is true artists, but what the hell is that? Like artists like, at the point, I'll just get to the point. Artists such as Stanley Kubrick embrace technology.
But see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. You need to understand the basics, but you should never write off the technology that you're given.
Exactly.
Like just because you think it's easy or, the cheap way out. Like, no, take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Do it.
Yeah. And it's because I think that's like a theme throughout the book that I read about making 2001 is that all that they did everything for the first time.
Yeah.
And there's a reason we still talk about 2001 today.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not because they were like, we're going to do this the old school way, whatever, like it's not like that.
And using, making such great use of the current technology is important to make more advancements. Like you don't, like you need to study and learn and understand the stuff that came before what's currently available to you.
Yes.
But if you don't utilize what's currently available to you, how are you going to progress?
Yeah, you're just going to fall behind.
Right.
You're going to fall behind, like in terms of what people want.
Just potential for further creativity and innovation and experimentation and revelation. Oh my gosh, I'm writing
Redemption.
a Rick Veitch book.
So we'll end it right there. But I'm going to put this out there in the world, and I'm going to try. I have no expectations. I do not in any way think that this will happen, but I'm going to try to reach out to Rick Veitch and maybe try to get him on this show, because that would be the craziest thing for me, because I am such a big fan. Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to try, because the podcast that I listened to with him was a Zoom call, but it was amazing. It was awesome to hear him talk about his work.
Right. I mean, it's so, like, there are so many, like, people out there that do this work, and they're all incredibly talented, but you can absolutely tell just by this that this guy's, I mean, he's unique. He's like an original thinker.
Definitely.
And so that would be incredible.
Yeah. So, if you're listening, just find something by Rick Veitch. Yeah, literally anything.
Yeah,
and you'll
find something online. Like, just check them out. It's cool.
So anyway, thank you for listening. And this is one of those, I think it's the only time we've ever done a back-to-back recording. So we're about to hit the record button and then hit it again and record something else. So thank you for listening to this bonus episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Space Dreamers, a Sue Madre production. See you next time.